The full series of Singles Club episodes is available at patreon.com/scubaofficial.
Welcome to Singles Club on the Music Not Diving podcast. I'm Scuba. Singles Club is our kind of sidebar format. Mostly we do this on Patreon, patreon.com/scubaofficial, but occasionally I stick on the mic and we'll put it up on YouTube. So this is one of those. What is Singles Club, you're asking yourself? Well, basically I listen to 10 tracks from an official Spotify playlist, the top 10 tracks. It might be new tunes, it might be a genre playlist, it could be anything at all. And I give you my very quick and dirty review of each of the tunes, basically. So this is not supposed to be a deep dive. It's not supposed to be rehearsed. This is all in one take. I often know absolutely nothing about the music. I've got the duration of the track to research what is going on and what I'm going to talk about. So yeah, it can be pretty bad. It can be pretty funny. It can be pretty good. On the first one of these that we put up on YouTube, I had a comment that said, this just feels like a corner of the internet middle-aged men come to shit on things, to make them feel themselves better and somehow convince themselves they are superior to other people who might make or listen to these tracks. Really, really strange energy. So that commenter basically nailed it. That's what we're doing here. And, you know, if you don't like it, well, then there are other places you can go to on the internet to enjoy yourself. But this is Singles Club. RnB X is the name of the playlist. Like I said, official Spotify playlist. We always do official Spotify playlists for no real reason, to be honest. They just seem, you know, I don't know, they seem to have weight somehow. Not, you know, intellectual weight or creative weight, just, you know, legitimacy. Let's put it like that. So like I said, we're going to go through each of them in turn, and then I'm going to give you my take. So let's do it, shall we? Number 10 in this playlist is On Me, featuring Odeal by Six Black. So let's take a listen, shall we? Let's go. So mispronouncing the first artist on a Singles Club episode, completely mispronouncing it, is absolutely on brand for what we're doing here. So Six Black's obviously not called Six Black, it's just because it's called Black with a 6 instead of the B. That shows how much knowledge is going to be on show over the next couple of minutes as I try and analyze this tune. So he's on Interscope Records. Interscope, obviously a very different label now to how it was when Jimmy Iovine was running it. It's a new track, brand new album. Quite often on these playlists, you get stuff which is old. I mean, you know, increasingly the stuff which is listened to on Spotify is catalog music, and, you know, stuff which is older than 2 years really dominates listening. But on this playlist, you know, I imagine we're going to have some variation. It's not all going to be new. So, I mean, it just says, I mean, what the playlist says is just says where RnB lives. So this is, as you couldn't tell, way outside my wheelhouse. But it was a great track, I thought. I really liked it. Really nicely produced, very understated vocal performance, really nicely put together. You know, the kind of guest vocals giving something slightly different. And like I said, understated in terms of a song, but just a cool vibe. Absolutely a cool vibe. And that's kind of what you'd hope for if you put on a R&B playlist, right? I mean, you're not looking for club bangers. That's not what R&B is these days. I mean, there was a brief period. I'm going to be referencing, you know, 90s and 2000s R&B a lot, no doubt, in this episode. But that was the era of big R&B bangers. But I don't think that's what we're going to be having in this playlist, generally speaking, just looking up and down it. I haven't heard any of these tunes. Recognize a couple of the artists, but I don't think that's what this is going to be. But this was a good start, genuinely. I genuinely like that. The guy's been around for a little while, 33 from Baltimore, grew up in Atlanta, on his third album or something. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Right, let's try and pronounce this one correctly. Victoria Monét, or Monét, M-O-N-E with an acute accent, T. Track is called Let Me. Let's have a listen to this. Well, okay, so this is what's great about Singles Club. You see me learning about music in real time. So I'm pretty sure we got the pronunciation right for a start. That was 4 minutes 52. That's kind of unusual, but it is unusual for a song nearly 5 minutes to get into a big playlist like this. Victoria Monét is a 37-year-old from Atlanta, Georgia, broke through late on, but she was a songwriter first. So she wrote a bunch of songs on the early Ariana Grande albums, interestingly, but she didn't write this. So she obviously, for some reason, was able to make the jump in her 30s from being a sort of back room person, studio person, to being front of mic, which is in itself really interesting. Actually, that's unusual. That's very unusual. And she won Best New Artist at the Grammys in 2024 at the age of 35. That's really unusual. So there's obviously a backstory here, which I can't, research adequately in 5 minutes, as well as trying to listen to the track and objectively formulate some opinions about the track. But I mean, the track was cool. It's very, it's a ballad. It's a kind of RnB ballad, basically, with more than a few nods to that classic 90s, 2000s, more 2000s era. So it's got the synth acoustic guitar in it, which I think is a TLC reference off the top of my head. I should have listened to some classic RnB to prepare for this. But, it's got that very obviously synth acoustic guitar lick that comes in the post choruses, like the kind of bridge sections. And, obviously great vocalist. She must be a great vocalist, although she wouldn't have broken through at the age of 35. But it's, again, very laid back. Like, there's no Whitney Houstoning going on this tune at all. But it's cool. It's nice. It's nice. Maybe RnB is just a kind of chill out genre now. Maybe. I don't know. We're going to find out. But this was, it was good. I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but this might be quite a cool playlist just to kind of save and put on, when you're making dinner. Right. Okay. Another difficult one to pronounce. It's Giveon, Give, E with an accent, but not an acute accent. I'm not sure what that accent's called. It's the flat accent, ON, featuring Leon Thomas. And the track is called Fool Me Once. And we have to make sure that we mention that Fool Me Once is all in capitals. So let's take a listen to this, shall we? So I just put in a question to Gemini asking, is latter-day R&B more of a chill-out genre than previous eras? And I know AI is, has the tendency to agree with you and be a bit sycophantic, but it replied, you hit the nail on the head. Modern R&B, spanning from the mid-2010s alternative boom to the 2020s, is fundamentally quieter, more ambient, and more introspective than its predecessors. So yeah, that's what this is. So that answered my earlier question. This is like slow jams, basically. What used to be called slow jams, I think. So this guy, Giveon, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Is that how you pronounce it? It doesn't actually say. Let's call him Giveon. One of the genres that he's noted on his Wikipedia page is neo-soul. And that's kind of, neo-soul would be more, how I would have categorized this without learning what I've just learned. And, this, okay, so let's talk about the track. This was much more of a electronic production, drum machines, that sort of latter day, or kind of like trap / contemporary hip hop approach to drum programming, but with these big kind of washy and kind of really warm keys over it, which I guess gives it that. I mean, that's the kind of sonic, that's the sound palette, isn't it? It's kind of like those big, really lush keys. That's what we're going to hear on, I would say, probably every one of these tunes. But then you do get, like I said, variation with the percussion. This is, like I said, much more electronic percussion. Sounded pretty cool, pretty nicely put together. Again, great vocal performance. All of these, no doubt everyone in this chart is going to be able to sing, possibly with the exception of the next one I've just noticed. But I mean, my complaint always on Singles Club is that the songs in contemporary music are not there. You just don't get those really, really strong choruses, those instant classics. And I think you could probably say that about these first 3 tracks on this playlist. Maybe that's a bit less fair when talking about this one. The Fool Me Once hook line's kind of cool, and it's all right. It's all right, but it's not it's not a massive hit record. It's a kind of genre record, I guess. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I don't think I'm going to hate anything in this chart. But I say I'm not going to hate anything. But the next track in the playlist is Drake. Now, Drake, of course, is a divisive figure. He was publicly humiliated in front of the world, of course, in the much publicized beef with Kendrick Lamar. He seems to have emerged from that basically unscathed, certainly in terms of his commercial footprint anyway. So I have no idea what this sounds like. I haven't listened to a Drake's tune for, I don't know, a long time. Not since like God's Plan. I thought God's Plan was awesome. And that kind of era of Drake I thought was just pretty sick, actually. But I mean, I'm fairly sure he's got it in the locker to be pretty bad as well. So let's listen to this. It's called Classic. By the way, that last one as well was a new one, or relatively new anyway, in the last 3 months. So maybe all these are new tunes. Classic by Drake. Let's give this a go.
Well, girl, you know what? Never mind.
Okay, so wow. Obviously, a big part of that Kendrick Lamar beef was Kendrick speculating on Drake's, let's call them sexual preferences. And basically the hook line of this tune, the main hook line is him saying, "Is this your first time?" And the girl saying, yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, I suppose that's a kind of middle finger to some extent to Kendrick and stuff, but I mean, I suppose he just doesn't care, right? I mean, the whole, I suppose, genre of R&B, the kind of classic, that 90s, 2000s era was really toxified by R. Kelly and the kind of subsequent revelations about R. Kelly. So, I mean, that's kind of baked in to this whole thing, isn't it, really? It's very much part of the furniture. Slightly dodgy, more than slightly dodgy approaches to, taking advantage of impressionable young ladies. I mean, like, as a song, it was deeply forgettable, apart from the aforementioned lines. To some extent, this is excusable because the traditional song structure, of course, is the kind of ABC structure is something which has clearly been done to death over the course of decades. And, I have some sympathy with not necessarily wanting to do that, but that's kind of how a song works, and messing with it too much really just, you run the risk of the whole thing just becoming a kind of morass. At the bottom of it, like a song needs a strong chorus. It really does. And if it doesn't have a strong chorus, then you're in trouble, and you're basically going to be forgotten immediately afterwards, after your song finishes. So, and that's kind of what I felt about all of these tracks, and is kind of commonly how I feel about, contemporary, like pop adjacent music. Maybe there'll be more on this playlist though. Next track is Drop the Low by Bryson Tiller. Let's have a listen. Right, yeah, this is brand new. Came out 3 days ago. Yeah, on Friday. Trap Soul. This, I think, is more what I would have expected modern R&B to be like, I think. So, never heard of this guy before, obviously, but Trap Soul, his debut album from 10 years ago, in fact, 11 years ago, 2015. He apparently single-handedly popularized a subgenre called Trap Soul, based on presumably his debut album. And the aforementioned, trap drums, hip-hop type, contemporary hip-hop drums, but then the big washy keys, and in this case, synth strings, really nice synth string arrangement. Like, it sounds lovely, really, really nice sounding arrangement. And it works well with the drums, the drum machines and stuff. It absolutely does. It sounds cool. That's, what I would have expected this to sound like, much more than some of the other stuff that we've had in this. you know, my previous comments about the songs are exactly the same. Like, there's no chorus in this track. It just kind of does that triplet rap thing. I don't know who started doing that. I think it might have been Kendrick. It's, to me, just not very good. I mean, I think the first time I heard it, it sounded cool. But then every other time I heard it, it was like, well, this just doesn't sound as good as rapping on the beat, basically. I mean, you know, rapping in 8s and 16s. I just, do you know what I mean? Whatever. But I think probably to a generation of people, that's just one of what it, you know, it sounds a lot more normal. It just sounds bad to me, to be honest. Anyway, as a track though, some lovely elements. Absolutely. Yeah, trap soul. This makes sense. And these are all Southern guys, most of it. This is guys from Louisville, Kentucky. Other guys have been from Atlanta. It's all right. It's all right, but there's no songs. It's fine, but there's no good songs. But that's not a ding on this genre because there's no good songs basically anywhere anymore, apparently. Okay, into the top 5. This is Amma featuring Brent Faiyaz. Track entitled Need It Bad. Let's take a listen to this.
And make love to you till the morning.
Okay, I had to go on a really quick deep dive during that track, meaning that I don't know if I've got a lot to say about the tune. I mean, absolutely not that trap thing. Live drums, much more kind of classic soul, I suppose, sounding. Again, no chorus of note, completely whatever. I mean, the reason I went down a rabbit hole is because Amma, formerly Amalu, is from North London. She broke onto the scene firstly going by Amalu, then shortened her name recently. But she really sings in a very strong American accent in this track. And, you know, we talked about this before in Singles Club. It's okay, you know, Mick Jag did it, so, you know, it's probably all right. But at the same time, you know, the whole point about grime was that we didn't have to do that. Like, UK music doesn't have to be British people pretending to be American. Having said that, this is featuring an American vocalist as well, Brent Faiyaz, who also owns the label and produced the track. I think he produced the track, which, you know, post Diddy feels a bit, okay. Sure, it's all totally above board and, you know, nothing bad going on, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's fine. Sure, it's absolutely fine. I mean, yeah, it was all right. It was all right. Interestingly, Drake really likes this singer. So he, quote, famously co-signed her breakout 2016 single, TBC, and openly cited her debut EP entitled DDD, which didn't come out until 2 years later, as one of the biggest sonic influences for his Scorpion album. That's interesting. This person is probably worth closer inspection, I would say. But as a track, it was kind of, you know, it was all right. I want a big chorus in this playlist. We've got 4 more tracks. I want a big chorus that I'm going to remember. I don't want it just to be a mood playlist, you know? Everyone knocks Spotify for just creating mood playlists, but this is supposed to be RnB. This is supposed to be singles, big singles. This is not like an ambient playlist. You can have good songs, big songs that fit into this kind of feel. Anyway, let's see if we can get one in number 4. This is Tems, track entitled What You Need. Well, that was the worst one so far. I mean, that was just the same chord sequence looped up, same drums looped up with a unimaginative vocal over the top with a completely forgettable chorus line, which is a shame. It is a shame because Tems is from Nigeria. She's become pretty successful by all accounts. I had some big singles, done a track with Justin Bieber, done some, you know, notable things. There's just no excuse for writing a song with no chord changes. Well, no, just one section. I just genuinely, I mean, obviously you can write a great song like that, okay? I'm not saying, but seriously, in 2026, by the way, this came out in 2025. This is the only track so far which came out in 2025. You need to be doing a lot with the top line, if you're just going to do the same chord sequence the whole way through, you need to do a lot more than this. Anyway, I mean, it was really, I mean, you could listen to it was like background music. It's elevator music, basically. Completely nothing to it. And not even a particularly good vocal performance either, to be honest. I mean, she's fine, but when you come to an R&B playlist, at the very least you want some virtuosic vocals. And we do not have this on this track. I mean, I've been charitable so far. This was bad. It was just bad. So, sorry, Tems. Number 3 is by Chris Brown. How does Chris Brown still have a career? Featuring Lucky Daye, and it's called Slow Jams. Let's take a listen to this.
What's my name, baby, screaming? Turn around, not your back, yeah.
So it's fair to say that my opinion of Chris Brown was coloured permanently by his 2009 guilty plea to felony assault of his then girlfriend Rihanna. He sold 140 million records. I didn't realise it was that much. He's one of the world's biggest selling ever artists. I should have known that, really. It's also not that surprising that he's, managed to increase his fame since that incident. I think the immediate aftermath was quite bad, but it just became a bit of a meme after that, didn't it? And, maybe if it had happened around 2016, things would have been different, but it feels like if it was going to happen at any time, 2009 was probably as good a time as any for him. I mean, he's got that real 90s, 2000s feel to his vocal delivery. He's actually still only 37, and most of the people in this chart have been in their 30s. I think everyone's been in their 30s. Yeah, I think he's the same age as Bryson Tiller, weirdly enough. But, I mean, obviously just been around forever. Yeah, the first album came out in 2006, so he was 17 or 18 when that came out. One thing I can say about this track is that the backing track is awesome. Like, the drums are absolutely great sounding. I mean, it's a sample, but just really, really cool sounding drums. Lovely little kind of like bass loop sample. And you've got these kind of ubiquitous, washy, really lush sounding, wide keys. Yeah, I mean, it's a great backing track, certainly. And a great vocal delivery, from both singers. The chorus is, okay. Again, like, it suffers from this thing of just being basically the backing track is essentially a loop for the whole song. Put a mid-late in. Just change, you have to modulate, just change the chords a little bit for one, for like 8 bars. It would make such a difference. I don't think that's a radical departure from the genre at all. Do you? I don't think so. Anyway, this is probably the best track in the chart so far. So, and if the public have made up their mind about Chris Brown, so who am I to go against the opinion of the public? 2 more. This is KWN, track entitled "Touch Myself." Okay, so another mispronunciation of a artist name, K1. K1 is the correct pronunciation, not KWN. Lesbian R&B is not something that happened in the 2000s and the 90s. It really isn't, but it is happening here. And that was really good as a track. That was definitely the best track so far. Again, like, definitely guilty of, insufficient chord changes and that sort of thing, and therefore was slightly limited as a song. But dynamics-wise, yeah, real kind of progression through the track, ups and downs, lefts and rights, real kind of power in the vocal delivery, nice production. I would say a little bit too much auto-tune on the voice, maybe unnecessary auto-tune on the voice, basically. Audible. It doesn't need to be audible. If someone can sing, you just need to put that. It's like, 2026, you need to do that. But overall, it was really good. That was a proper R&B track. That's how it should be. My only reservation is it is a little bit Pop Idol. Just a touch. Just a little bit. In terms of the slightly over the top. I don't know if that's harsh or not. That's probably being harsh. One thing you got again was the synth acoustic guitar. little nod to the classic era with that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was good. It was, I mean, as a song, definitely the best I think that we've heard. And it was just quite interesting that lesbian R&B can be a thing. And that's good. That's positive. Right, last one. It's Kehlani featuring Leon Thomas, track entitled Sweet Nuthins. Let's give this a go.
I know you ain't believe it lately. Your sweet nothing.
That was a 90s, 2000s R&B track. And it was good. Possibly with a bit less detail than those classic era tracks had. But that was a really nicely put together song with a big chorus, which you're going to definitely remember. Big hook line, really nice delivery, both on the vocal and the guest vocal. Probably a bit less so Kehlani apparently is the quote absolute heartbeat of modern R&B, and they have been extremely successful and influential over the last 10 years. They, as in because she goes by they, them. Again, not something you would have got in 90s and 2000s R&B. I think that informs the lyrics. Like the problem with a lot of those 90s and R&B, 90s and 2000s R&B tracks and the kind of crossover with the hip hop of that period is that, I mean, I particularly remember this with the first Khalees album. There was like some rap features on that album, which were just like pretty straightforwardly misogynistic in the lyrical content. And it really clanged at the time. It just didn't make any sense. And I think you wouldn't get that now. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I really think that, that wouldn't happen. I mean, so this singer is from the wrong side of the tracks, grew up in Oakland. Both parents were drug addicted. Father died early from an overdose, apparently, or some such related thing. Interestingly, first came to prominence as part of the group Pop Life on America's Got Talent. I always complain about those talent shows and how they kind of have tended to kind of homogenize, particularly vocalists in pop. And I suppose they were being homogenized towards the standards of R&B vocalists in the 2000s and 90s and 2000s. So maybe it's less of a thing in R&B because that's kind of what they would have sounded like anyway. That's what, that's the kind of standard of vocal that was trying to be attained. But yeah, it was good. This is a good song, good track, probably the best track, probably my favorite track. So this has got better. There's been some okay ones, some really middle of the road ones. I forgot to mention Drake's vocal delivery when we're talking about Drake. That whole, I can't sing, so I'm just going to slam a bunch of really noticeable auto-tune on it. How can you still be doing that? It sounds so dated, actually. Audible auto-tune now sounds extremely dated. I don't know why people can still do it. But yeah, this was fun. This was a learning curve, learning process. Very interesting what's happened to this genre. I hadn't listened to it in, God knows how long, the odd tune. But you learn something new every day, particularly if you do Singles Club and put on a chart of a genre of music that you never listened to. So I hope you enjoyed this. You probably didn't, but actually, if you're still here, maybe you did. So I will be back on the next one. Actually, before I go, I should mention that, like I said at the start, we normally do this on Patreon, patreon.com/ScubaOfficial. Like this video if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel, of course. You can buy some of this amazing merch if you look below, or go to hotflashrecordings.com/shop. Listen to the regular podcast. We don't always put podcasts up on YouTube. So the last podcast was an audio-only podcast. So search Music Not Diving on your audio podcast app of choice, and there will be more stuff than you have here on the YouTube channel. So if you want to watch a techno producer review music that he knows nothing about, I'll see you back here for the next episode of Singles Club.